Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. I've got a LaCroix, does that count? Oh, I bet that peaks so bad. Okay, so is there latency, is there not? Yeah, you definitely need to crack a beer. I mean, here it's only 11 a.m. I don't know how acceptable that is, but given the current times, it's not that bad. Pretty cinematic live stream. I mean, yeah, I've got a 300D through a 6x6 grid, and I'm competing with this mess behind me. What are we going to talk about? How am I doing? I'm doing pretty good, given the current situation. Do a recreation scene from Lighthouse. What's that, like black and white film with crazy vintage lenses? That would be a difficult one for sure. Ginger beer. Yes, I am playing with the XT3. I can't see anything that I'm doing here. Hold on. Let's do this. Do this here. This is better. Yeah, I've got the XT3. I'm going to make a video over this probably this week. And it's not going to be like a normal like review video by any means because the camera's been out for quite a long time. But I am going to talk about kind of this kind of specific image I'm getting out of this camera, like with this setup. And I don't want to give too much away because I probably want to watch the video, but yeah, it's an XT3 with a Viltrox speed booster and then vintage lenses, which gives a super unique look because this Viltrox speed booster basically sucks, but like in a good way. Does that make sense? Okay, I don't want to monitor this audio anymore. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to build your online portfolio and run your business. I've actually been using Squarespace for a really long time now, probably longer than 5 years, well before they were a sponsor of the channel. It's just an awesome all-in-one platform to present your work online. I even use it for me and my wife's French macaron shop. Actually, during this quarantine, we had to change how we operate our macaron shop, and something I had to do really fast was to set up an online business for it. So within like 45 minutes, I was able to create an entire commerce page to be able to sell our products online and have them picked up curbside. And that was something that was really amazing, and without Squarespace, I don't think I could have done that. Squarespace has always been the obvious choice for a website builder for me because the templates are beautiful, and as someone that wants a lot of creative control, their super customizable features like video backgrounds and Vimeo integration allow me to have just that. So head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/SpencerSakurai to save 10% off your first purchase of website or domain. The speed booster, it gives some pretty wild bokeh on any lens you put on it, so it's pretty fun. Best budget Canon EF vintage lenses. There's not really any vintage EF lenses, I would say. But if you did a FD like mine and then converted them to EF, then there's lots of stuff. It depends what kind of focal length you normally like to shoot on, but I would definitely start with a 35 f2 or a 51.8 or a 51.4. The 35 f2 is like $250 online, and then to convert mine with the 3D printed mod like I did on my video costs like $15. That's definitely where you should start. What are some future aspirations? Well, I want to do more narrative. More narrative work for sure. Recreate movies and stuff. Like, narrative is what inspires me now. It's like a totally different thing than commercials. Commercials have like a lot more shots. They can be, cooler really, but narrative is like what inspires me. But lately I haven't been super inspired by anything. I don't know if that's just because I'm not watching TV because I'm too busy or what. I know a lot of people are sitting around right now, but I am not. I have 3 commercials I'm editing right now, and I'm doing stuff like this. And my wife and I have a macaron shop. Like, we're super busy right now. So, but nothing cinematography wise is really inspiring me. What do you guys have any recommendations right now? $28mm FD 1.8. Do they make a 28 f 1.8 or is it 2.8? Yeah, narrative is definitely more fulfilling. There's something to be said about commercial and how you can just like come in for a few days, shoot something, and then let's turn this down a little bit. Shoot something and just like get a creative itch out really, really quick. But narrative is like this long form thing that people can watch forever and forever, and it's not a 30-second commercial that people want to skip. So macaron, yeah, French macarons. Macaroons is the kind of the common thing, but a macaroon is actually a coconut cookie, so that's like a very like strong misconception of how you say that. Obviously I'm not French, so I don't think I'm saying macaron right anyways, but I'm not going to say macaroon because that's just who I am. Terrence Malick, yeah. Terrence Malick was what inspired me the most to get into narrative. Now, I haven't shot a lot of Terrence Malick-esque stuff lately, but that's like everything I was trying to shoot when I first started was like, how do I make this look like Chivo? Actually, funny story, when Terrence Malick and Chivo came to shoot in Oklahoma, I was on the email list to be the DP assistant for Chivo. They sent me an email, they said, can I come out and do it? And I like said yes, even though I had no place to stay. And then they ended up like changing production around and I couldn't do it. And I didn't even know who he was at this time. That was like 8 years ago. And now I'm totally like regretting not sleeping like in my car just so I could be his assistant. Wild, wild stuff. I am not live streaming with Camlink. I'm actually, somehow this all works, but USB-C right into a Canon EOS R works with OBS, or you can use a thing called Camera Live and Cam Twist, and it'll just load right up. So I'm not using HDMI. Film school. I did go to film school. There's like a community college here in Oklahoma City that got a big grant for a bunch of equipment and a 6,000 square foot studio. And then one of the teachers there actually was the producer of Godfather, the Godfather series, and also Apocalypse Now. And so he kind of got the money to start that. He was from here or something, and so he came back. So I was able to like play with Reds and stuff. Like the day one Red 1 came out, I was there. And I got to, get some hands-on experience, which was good. I don't really recommend film school at this point, but this was like 10 years ago when I did that. It kind of made more sense, and I networked and I met people, and it was a good thing for me. If you really want to spend the money, then go for it, but I would never recommend going into debt for that. Favorite lenses on commercials? Well, I mean, I use my vintage lenses almost exclusively for commercials right now. It depends on the project. Sometimes I might just use something a little sharper. But actually, right now I have the SLR Magic Micro Primes and the APO Primes coming in, so we can do a little test with those. So look for that video here in the next like 2 weeks. I'm gonna like kind of compare them to my vintage lenses and kind of show what they look like, without any filters in front of them and stuff like that, and just how their usability, because they're fairly inexpensive, and I think that's something that like you guys are probably more looking at. Obviously you could do the conversion like me, but if you want real cinema lenses, I think these micro primes might be the way to go. But for commercials, I've used a big array of lenses. It really depends on the job. What's my least favorite thing about being a DP? Well, my least favorite thing about being a DP is when you don't have any creative control and you're like, you have to show up and you have to film something that someone's been planning for a month or 2 months, and then you walk away from it. You don't know how it's going to get edited. You don't know how it's going to get colored, and you have no creative control going into it. But if you can get in with a director early enough and really plan everything out with the director, then that is much better. So I currently I quit freelance for a bit. I quit freelance so I could work at an agency so I could have full control over what I'm doing. So I'm working with the creative director every day to actually concept the commercials and I shot list every single shot at this point. I storyboard everything. So now I know exactly what I'm going to get. I'm coloring everything. And at this point, my editor quit a little bit ago. So now I'm actually editing everything. And so now like I'm touching every piece of the puzzle before it goes out the door. And now that's something that's been like super, super fulfilling for me. Being freelance is amazing and I love it. And I love that you can work on a bunch of different projects, but at some point you just might get sick of dealing with that kind of thing. And I did, I did it for 10 years and I was like, I want more control. So that's what I'm doing now. My projects are being affected as of 4 days ago, we did full lockdown in Oklahoma City where I live. So you can't go out and shoot now. We actually shot on the last day for a commercial. So Wednesday we actually shot before the lockdown, but luckily I have 3 commercials to edit. So it's no big deal. I'm just going to edit during this whole lockdown period. But yeah, all my freelance friends are going through a tough time. They're all definitely out of work right now because you can't gather around each other. SLR Magic breathe a lot. That's probably true. I mean, a lot of lenses breathe a lot actually. I mean, the thing is, it's just a price thing. I mean, you can get, you know how I am. You can get beautiful images without spending a lot of money, and that's what I'm trying to convey here. Actually, these vintage lenses that I use don't breathe that much. This 50, let's see. It doesn't breathe at all. Maybe internally it's breathing a little bit, but what kind of commercials have I shot? Everything from furniture commercials to Adidas to ESPN to mom and pop shops to roofing companies. I mean, hopefully should be doing a beer commercial here soon. Siri Anamorphic, I'm trying to get in touch with them. And that thing is amazing because it's a cheap anamorphic lens, but it's super sharp. So you actually have the ability to soften it up later rather than dealing with a lot of anamorphic lenses are just like, they're basically soft all the time. Even I've shot on a $35,000 Cook anamorphic, and at wide open on that, it's still not perfectly sharp, which, you guys know I don't care if it's super sharp, but that's still kind of wild. So that Suri one is like, at 1.8 is incredibly sharp. So if you put a Pro Mist in front of that or something, you're gonna have a really pretty image. I definitely want to play with that. Also like how small it is. Roger Deakins, the king. Takeaways. I mean, from a lot of behind the scenes stuff, his stuff is really just like, his is like a cinematography being invisible. And I didn't used to like that because I was into commercial stuff when I first started music video stuff. And I was like, I just want to make something look good. But now, I'm kind of getting more into that narrative realm. And the fact that Deakins can make something look just invisible, basically you don't even know the light's there, is pretty amazing. And he does some super weird techniques to do that. I don't know if you guys have seen where his bounce light and as his key light, but he's like he has it off the ground and he has it bouncing up like in a circle around the subject, and so it's kind of, I guess it does look supernatural because that's how light actually moves around in a room, but it's something I would never think about doing. So he does some wild stuff. He uses a lot of tungsten light too, which I think is interesting. I think, you know, we use a lot of LEDs right now, but tungsten light does have a certain quality to it that is just more natural. It just works better on the skin. But tungsten lights are super hot. They can blow breakers. They draw a lot of, you know, power. Bulbs go out all the time in those. They're super heavy. So at the end of the day, I'm not trying to use tungsten lights very often. Blackmagic Pocket 6K versus S1H. Man, it's just all about what you need a camera for. The 6K is going to do an amazing job from a quality standpoint. But if you're looking for something that's just like grab and go, good battery life, flip out screen, full frame, the S1H is really good. The codec on it is really good. Actually, I would say the XT3's codec is comparable, even though it's a 420 color space too. The XT3's color space is one of my favorite non-raw color spaces as well. Color space I'm talking about, the actual like compression, sorry. Listen, I don't know if Nikon's watching this. I know I won the Nikon contest. And so I'm advocating for Nikon right now, but at the same time I'm not. That ProRes or ProRes RAW ability coming out of the Z6, there's something going on there. I know people have talked about pixel binning. I don't know. The image is very, very hard to work with. And I'm not going to just go recommending that camera right now. But full frame 12-bit is what they say. So, I mean, something more looking into. But it was not inspiring for me to use that camera. So I got rid of it. Oh, wow. I am behind on these questions. Hold on. Initially get my foot in the door. Yeah, that's tricky. Freelance is tricky. It's really all about who you know. You should always be looking to like up your talent, obviously, but it's all about networking. It's about meeting people, doing a shoot, which is going to get you another shoot, meeting someone else on that shoot. I would even say, you know, be a camera assistant for the first couple of years and learn the industry around you. Meet as many people as you can, help as many people as you can, and learn as much as you can. But at the end of the day, it's all about contacts. I mean, it's all about who you know. When someone's like, I need this video shot, or I need, I need a cinematographer or whatever, you need to pop up in their head. That's what you do. And even if you're ACing, you need to tell people that you're also shooting, and you can be posting about yourself shooting so people still know that you do both. But yes, I would be shooting for multiple production companies. There's never just one. You know, you have relationships with a lot of them, and then you shoot for all of them. And that's kind of the thing about being a DP versus directors. DPs are kind of shooting all the time. And if you want to be a director, you're going to have to like probably just work on 1 or 2 projects a month. Is LaCroix secretly a beer? I don't know. If we're on this live stream till noon, maybe I'll pop open a beer. How do I keep the beard looking so great? It's actually kind of scraggly right now because I haven't shaved. Trick is just to keep it, oily. So I haven't showered since yesterday morning. So it's nice and oily right now. Tanner. Recommend a minimalist small studio lighting setup. Well, I don't know if you watched my last video. Not a lot of people did, but over those Nan lights, I would start with those. Either obviously aperture 120D or 300D, but those Nan lights can do a lot of stuff if you're not competing with windows. So like right now I have a 300D coming through a grid, so I can compete mostly with the windows. I'm shooting on the Canon EOS R without a log profile to get this image right now, so that's all blown out back there. But those Nan lights are amazing. They're so light, you can throw them in your car, you can pull them out, set them up in 2 seconds. It would make, your job way more efficient. They need to be diffused a little bit, but for the most part, you can make those work really well. Black satin filters, I have not. I've seen some comparisons with those, they look pretty nice. Or the classic soft, is that what they're called? Classic soft filters, those look pretty nice too. There will definitely not be 12-bit RAW on the Canon R5. There's just no way. Canon would never do that. Problem with Canon is they're always going to do something to their DSLRs to make sure that you still buy their cinema cameras. Applying for an agency or bringing freelance. Well, you're going to learn more faster if you are freelance. So I would say do freelance for a while first. Some people do the opposite. They apply at an agency first, they shoot for a while. But the problem is you're going to get stuck only working with a few clients and you're going to be shooting the same stuff over and over again. But if you can, I would freelance first and just camera assist or something like that, because then you can be in a lot of different shoots and see a lot of different variations and shooting styles and like working with light and what lenses to use, and you just keep seeing all that, and you can eventually absorb all that information and be able to apply it to your own work. I didn't apply to an agency. I worked with them and they were like, "You're really good and we want you to work with us," and they poached me. It took them about a year to get me, but they finally did. Yes, 10-bit 420 really does look better than 8-bit 420. 10-bit looks way better than 8-bit, no matter what. I mean, we're talking so many more colors in your image, so much more latitude. 10-bit is the way. 8-bit, if you're gonna do 8-bit, definitely don't shoot in a flat profile. I would recommend shooting in a profile that's just a little bit flat, because you're not gonna have enough color information to bring all that back. Although I think shooting 8-bit starting out isn't that bad, because you'll learn about exposure more, you'll learn about containing your image and shaping your image, whereas if you're shooting in log, you can kind of let things get away from you, because you're like, it's all there, when I get it in post, I can bring it back, but the reality is you can underexpose really easily and not be able to bring everything back. I haven't tried the 8-bit on the X-T3. The 10-bit is amazing. You can switch to 200 megabits per second or 400, and just the options on that camera are awesome. Shot deck. No, I'm looking into shot deck because I've basically used my own version of shot deck forever. I definitely need to start doing more of that. I recently got an iPad and I've just been like sketching out everything I do, storyboarding, but shot deck is an awesome tool. Yeah, direct your own stuff. Shoot stuff that you want to get more work in. So like say you want to shoot cars, well then go out there and shoot your own car commercials so someone will see that you're capable of doing it. The problem is, you'll hear this a lot on other podcasts and other things, is people will say that like you can't get a car commercial until you shot a car commercial. So it doesn't really make any sense, but that's the reality of it sometimes. You have to be able to show that you're capable of doing something in order to get the job. So when I started, I would go out, I would shoot random short films and shoot random music videos for free just so I could learn something and also shoot something that I could have full creative control over, so people could see what I can do, what I like to do, and so they would hire me for that in the future. Say you start out shooting weddings even. Remember, if you shoot a wedding, you're going to get hired for more weddings. Remember, like, you need to shoot what you want to keep shooting, or at least promote the stuff that you want to keep shooting. That way people think that you're the person to go to for that sort of thing. I think I'm going to do a video over my color grading process, just like my own kind of workflow when I'm doing quick grading, nothing like too crazy, but I think I'm going to do that today, so I'll try to have that out this week too. Is anyone interested in seeing that? I know I've been asked for that quite a bit on the channel. Give me some affirmation to make that video. How long did it take me to become a DP full-time? Well, I'm a pretty risky individual. I kind of always have done kind of what I've wanted. And so I just jumped into shooting really fast. But I also AC'd camera assisted for a really long time too. I did both for a really long time. But I started shooting professionally, like getting paid to shoot stuff pretty quick once I just said that's what I'm gonna do. You have to kind of fully commit to it to make that kind of stuff happen. Kansas City, that is a small market, but like that's a decent market. There's quite a few production companies there. Meet people, meet people, meet people, meet people. Meet anyone in the industry, make relationships. I have not tested the Z-Cam yet. I'm going to try to test the Z-Cam full frame cameras when those come out. I have not used Panasonic Cine D very much, although I think it would be decent for 8-bit recording. Yes, I would start with that and not try to shoot in log. Okay, yes, so definitely do the color grading video. Color grading is really hard. I think people make it look easy, and I think that's why people use LUTs a lot. Color grading is, it's a tricky thing. Because if you're not getting your lighting ratios perfect on set, when you go to color grade, you're going to try to force those things and you're going to maybe break the image or do something that doesn't quite look right. And it's just hard to find the ratios again in post. That's why I really recommend shooting with some sort of LUT in camera. That way you can have contrast already there. You can light for that contrast, and once you get it into post, you have more room to play around. Current live stream setup. I've never live streamed like this before, but I actually have this Audio-Technica mic that I use for all of my videos. I'm going to a Zoom H6 as an audio interface, which is going to the computer, and then I have a Canon EOS R, which is using USB-C. The mailman's outside. USB-C going into OBS, which is pretty amazing. This camera does that, because I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to buy like a cam link or some sort of HDMI converter, but this just does it using a USB-C, which was amazing. And then I have a 300D through a 6x6 quarter grid blasting me in the face to try to keep up with this behind me, because I just thought this would be more interesting than showing you my little apartment. Gaffer, I have gaffed a little bit, yes. It's kind of interesting. I would gaff a little bit if I were new to this, because it's a good way of like using lights more, touching lights more. The only thing you're thinking about on set is how to control light. You're not even thinking about your lenses, your camera, or the creative that much. And so gaffing is pretty awesome. I would really recommend that, maybe even over camera assisting. If you could do both while you're getting started, I would highly recommend that. If you can get that kind of work. A lot of small markets, gaffers, it's hard for them to get that much work because you don't need gaffers as often. Yeah, LUTs you kind of need to treat like film stocks. Like if you're trying to go for a different look, you can use a LUT, and you light for that LUT so you can know what the image is going to look like later. That's actually something that I'm going to start playing with even more and more. I actually shot this whole ass commercial. I dialed in a whole LUT to create a look for this entire commercial that was going to be shot outdoors. And I used that LUT on the entire production. I was piping it to the director and the client, and then I was viewing it in that LUT the whole time. And so I was able to get my ratios right the whole time. And then when I got, in post, I put the LUT on there initially to always have a baseline to start with. And so the whole commercial had a specific look to it. I think it was super helpful to do that. So you treat it like this is my film stock. This is going to be baked into the image, even though it's not. But treat it that way. And it's going to help you finesse your lighting and your shots more on set. Yeah, 8-bit H.264 stuff grading is never going to be easy. Sony cameras, I don't really shoot on Sony cameras, so I don't really have a recommendation for you there. S-Log, when it first came out, the A7S and stuff like that, S-Log just drove me crazy, and now I don't shoot on Sony cameras. So I'm sorry, I don't have any recommendations. But it would be helpful once you're starting to really, really dial in lighting ratios, like where your shadows are at, where your skin tones are at. Then a light meter is really handy. It can make you more efficient. But for me, I'm just using the monitor. I'm using the LUTs, I'm using false color, and that's how I dial everything in. That's just what works for me. At the end of the day, if it looks, I've heard someone say this a while ago, if it looks good on your monitor, then it's gonna look good later. So it's something to think about. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but there was a lot of times where I was shooting in log, and I was like, it doesn't look great on the monitor, but I know that I can get it back later. And I just feel like that's a bad way of doing it. Definitely, use your monitor. The monitor is very important. I'll probably make a video over that at some point. Monitor is super important. But false color in the histogram I'm using constantly. Making sure I'm not clipping. I've been trying to expose more to the right, even though I've recommended a lot on the channel of bringing your image down in post and making it really dark. You know, I talked about David Fincher. He's always between like 5 and 30 IRE on the histogram. Definitely, like, the trick to that though is to light bright and then bring it down later. That way you have all that information still there and not just shooting in the dark, because you'll get that when you shoot in the dark like that, you're not gonna be able to come back from it. Although if you're gonna hand it off to a client and you're not gonna get to color grade it yourself, you might wanna shoot a little dark. That way they can't take it brighter than you are actually intending to do. I don't have a go-to ratio. I'm all about just what looks good. But it's definitely like whatever you're trying to create. Maybe you do have a reference, maybe you used a movie or something like that. I just try to dial into that similar look. You know, each camera, like every camera, you kind of have to learn how to shoot on them because their color science is different. And the red took me a long time. I actually think I prefer the Red MX. It just had a more like, I don't know, the flat profile on it looked more like film to me. I don't know why, but it did. I could shoot on that and not even grade it that much and get a real like moody image. I liked it. But it's a pretty sharp sensor, so you definitely want to put softer lenses in front of that. My favorite monitor, the monitor I use mostly right now is the Small HD 7-inch Touch. Here, let me just try to bring it in the frame here. So this is the Ursa Mini Pro that I've been shooting commercials with a lot. But then we have the Cine 7 here. And I like that it's touchscreen. You can like navigate the menus really fast. On all the old Small HDs, they had this kind of weird joystick on it, and it took a long time to operate, but this you can kind of just touch around on it. Fingerprints kind of suck, but this one's super bright, which I really like. So you can view it outside really easily. And then I just have it powering into the V-mount on the back. Can't really see it, can you? I was using this little Tilta $100 follow focus, and it works pretty well. You can't really crank on it too hard, or it might come loose because it is only a single-sided follow focus. But definitely something to consider if you guys were. There's finally a cheap follow focus that works. I'm really happy about that because, you know, most good follow focuses are like somewhere between $500 and $1,500, but this one is $100. And I would recommend it if you're going to be using kind of like vintage lenses or lenses that need a ton of torque. It's the best one I've ever used for that kind of thing, for in the inexpensive realm. Shadows always ruin my shots. Shadows are what makes the shots good. You're just probably lighting a little too dark. Use a LUT that is pulled down a little bit. And so that will force you to light brighter, but the image that you're seeing on the screen will be darker and you'll have less noise. Do you feel that you need to put black promise filter when using them? I go back and forth on this. It depends what kind of look you're going for. If you want even more mood, you could put a promise filter on a vintage lens, and I shoot that way often, but also a vintage lens is going to bloom a little bit differently. It's already going to be less contrasty. And so if you really need to decide what the video or whatever you're shooting, the project calls for, you can definitely do both. You can keep making an image look crappier and crappier until it gives you a specific look that you're looking for, which I'm going to talk about a little bit on the Fuji XT3 video that I'm going to put out. Equipment when you first start out. Well, I would say one big light or a bunch of little lights. But you need some power. I don't know about you, but I like to shoot into windows. So you need a lot of lighting power to compete with those windows. But if you're shooting in, probably don't do that when you first start out because it's just gonna be too hard. But I have a little trick about competing with Windows that I'm going to try to make a video over with very soon as well. But the first thing you should buy, man, I mean, probably buy a camera. You're going to need a camera to start learning. I would get something cheaper, like a Pocket or a Fuji XT3 or maybe even a GH5. And get a cheap lens. Get a Canon EF 35mm or 50mm. 50mm is like $50, 51.8, and then get that $12 EF converter. Or you can get something like a Nikon lens. It focuses backwards, but you can get those and put a $10 adapter on it and put on an EF camera. How do I expose my Ursa footage? Ursa is a pretty awesome camera. I think it's the most underrated camera. It has 15 stops with dynamic range. So, I mean, and mine was only $3,000. Like, that camera is so amazing. Built-in XLR inputs. To expose for that, though, I mean, I expose it like any other camera. It's not super, super good in low light. So, I mean, I try to make sure I have everything lit properly, but it does have a 12-bit color space. So, if you underlight it a little bit, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I try to just fill up that histogram, get as much light on the sensor as I can while it's still looking good. Gimbal or glide cam. Let's not go down that path on this video. I've used steady cams in the past, and I really like steady cams. Glide cams are fine too for small cameras. I don't have any problems with those. I own one of those for a little bit, and it worked. But I'd recommend a full-blown steady cam if you're going to have a heavier camera. How do you motivate yourself doing the same types of work over and over again? Well, I don't. If it's to pay the bills, you just have to do it. But I always try to push to change the creative a little bit to make something different every time. Dynamic range between the Pocket and the S1H. Yeah, I think the S1H, they rate it having more dynamic range in the Pocket, and I think it does. But it is you're only working with 10-bit versus 12-bit. So the image looks a little different, but the S1H had a lot of dynamic range. I don't know if you saw in my first video with it, but I was shooting into those windows, and I didn't have really any other lights on in the room except for that bounce for the close-up. But it can really hold a lot of dynamic range. Pocket's just a little less, but it's just a beefier codec, so you can get away with a little bit more. So the Pocket 4K does not have more dynamic range, no. Um, 4K versus 6K. I just like bigger frames, and I don't want to have to use a speed booster if I don't have to. I definitely like speed boosters, it's fine. So the 6K is pretty nice because of that, but the problem with that is, like I said in my video, is that the price difference. I mean, you free up some money if you shoot with the 4K versus the 6K, and you're getting basically the same image. I mean, having 6K is nice, but you're going to get a wider field of view. It's going to cost less, and you're going to get almost all the exact same options on the 4K. So why not just shoot with the 4K? And you can use more lenses. I mean, you're not crippled into just using the EF mount. Yeah, 400 interior scenes, sure. Yeah, but I did find the 800 on the Ursa is still very clean in low light. You can't go too low, obviously, but the 800 looks good. I kind of like the Ursa that it doesn't have a lot of ISO options because it kind of keeps you honest. It keeps you lighting properly and not trying to get away with stuff in post. Softboxes or silks for diffusion? Silks. I've talked about this extensively. Softboxes are just too small. Actually, something I would recommend is if you want to use something like a softbox, is just get the biggest one you can buy. They make like 5 foot, 6 foot softboxes. I would just get a big one. But I prefer just using the 6x6 grid because you can just roll it up, put it in a bag, put it in your car, wherever, pull it out really easily, and you're going to get a 6-foot light source. I just prefer to do that. The Lumix S1. I don't know. I want to test out the S1. I tried to get a loaner unit to test out, but the one I was trying to get didn't have Vlog on it, so I didn't know if it was really worth testing. I think that would be a good one because it's so much cheaper than the S1H and almost is the same, image coming out of it. It just isn't like video centric, so a lot of the menu systems and stuff aren't going to have as many like standard video controls that you might want. But if you don't have the money, I mean, I think the S1H is overpriced, so it just is. It's just too much money when you can get an Ursa for $3,000 used. An S1H is just costs too much money. So I would definitely consider the S1. I almost rented one just so I could see if I was going to buy that, but then I ended up buying this Fuji XT3, which has been, it's one of my favorite cameras I've ever used in the kind of mirrorless form factor. S1H is also one of the favorite cameras I've ever used though, which is $4,000. Gosh. Red Komodo will hurt. The Red Red fanboys will definitely buy that camera. All of them will. They'll all have one. They'll all have a secondary Red that's a Komodo. But most people that aren't Red fanboys or Red owners already, it's not going to really, I don't think it's going to change the market at all. It's not full frame, which is a bummer. Most cameras that are coming out now that are competing with the Red are going to be full frame, and they're going to have a different look. And I think for me, that's what I would be buying right now, personally. But I like full frame, so. Color temperature. Color temperature is something I've been playing with a lot. I really like mixing color temperatures now. I really like not always shooting at 5600 Kelvin or 3200 Kelvin. I'm trying to like play more with shooting in the middle and letting colors kind of fall where they want to fall, so you're getting color contrast in the room on your subject, which we've talked about the LUTs earlier. People use LUTs to change color in post, but what if you're doing it, if you looked at my last video, I'm using the NAND lights, those LED tubes. I actually had a green light and an orange light on in the room, so I didn't have to color anything green or orange. Like, it's already there. They're contrasting off of each other and just getting a better look in camera. Something else, I don't know if anyone follows Olan Collardi. He's a British cinematographer, and he said something really interesting the other day. He said that he balances for like 3800 Kelvin or 4000 Kelvin, or maybe 48, I don't know, somewhere in the middle, and then he will light daylight, but then he'll put a little tungsten light on in the room as a fill light, and it kind of warms up the skin, and he kind of shoots the color temperature in the middle. Thought that was really interesting. I'm going to experiment more with that. I've done something similarly to that before, but I'm going to experiment with that for sure. But try to get the image you want in the camera. The only problem is if you're shooting on a cheaper camera that doesn't have high bit depth, you will hurt the image if you do that. Like a Sony, if you're shooting 8-bit on a Sony, you need to white balance correctly. You need to be shooting for the same color temperature as your lights because it's just going to fall apart. The camera's codec is designed to have the color temperature accurate. Yes, I'm going to make a video on the XT3. But mostly how I'm using the XT3 I was talking about earlier, as a film stock. I have this camera set up in a way that gets me only a very specific look, and I'm trying to shoot things in that style, and that's kind of how I have the camera set up right now. I'll talk more about that in my video here in the next week. I don't like Nikon Z cameras. There's something fishy going on with the codec, and I just can't recommend it. Yes, when I watch movies, I have to watch movies twice sometimes because I am either I'm into the movie because I like the story and I forget to look at the cinematography, or vice versa. The cinematography distracts me the whole time and I have to rewatch the movie so I can understand the movie. And so I've watched some of my favorite movies 10 times, 20 times each because I can find new things every time, either in the story or or in the image. So like the movie I've probably watched more than any other movie is The Social Network. It's not the best movie ever, but there's something about it that inspires me a lot. And David Fincher's like filmmaking, and I'm constantly looking at the cinematography. I'm constantly looking at the editing and the pacing of that movie. It's just really good. I did sell the Z6. I just did not want that camera. Plus, Nikon lenses focus backwards. And my brain, I've been a camera assistant a bunch. I pull focus for people. I pull focus for myself. I use manual focus all the time. I can't be focusing my lenses backwards. No, there's not really any reason to upgrade. I mean, on the Ursa Mini G2 versus the G1, yeah, having BRAW would be nice. BRAW is awesome. I really, really like BRAW. The fact that you can get a really, really small codec that still shoots 12-bit is amazing. But I shoot ProRes a lot, and I like it a lot, so it's really a preference. It's definitely not worth the money, I wouldn't say, when you can just shoot ProRes 422 and get a pretty small codec and still get a really nice image. Just get a Pocket 6K if that's what you're looking for. You would get 6K, you get an S35 sensor, and you get BRAW. No really reason to get the Ursa other than more dynamic range, but dynamic range you can work around. The Z6, yeah, something fishy. It says it's 10-bit, but it does not act like 10-bit. I don't know if you saw my Nikon film that I submitted for the contest, but it is just barely underexposed, and I had to grade the whole image pretty flat because I couldn't bring anything back. And it was 10-bit ProRes. It was 700 gigs worth of footage coming out of the Atomos recorder, and I don't know why the files were so big. There was so much bit depth there, but the image was disgusting. I say disgusting. Compared to other cameras, I mean, it still looked pretty good. I've used every Blackmagic camera. So yes, Blackmagic Pocket Cinema, the original one, that camera was really fun. It was like smaller than a phone, and it had a really nice image. I shot a couple of music videos on it with a speed booster. Yeah, and I own the 2.5K Blackmagic that you put the full SSDs in. I actually really liked that camera. It was a helpful camera to get me started and learning about RAW workflow, and I actually shot some stuff with that. It was really pretty. They're still not super cheap though. I mean, if you could buy one of those for a few $100, that would be cool, but you might as well just get a modern pocket camera. Although the color science on those was kind of interesting. It looked kind of filmic, kind of a baked in more film look. Wireless alternative for big shoots. Yeah, obviously you could get the Nucleus Nano, or you could get that PD Movi, the one I kind of talked about on Twitter and stuff. It just has more like it's just a very small thumb wheel to pull focus on. That's the only problem. Like, it's not a legit follow focus where you have the full throw. But for like $250, it works really well. So it'd be something to consider. ProRes 422 or ProRes HQ. I mean, HQ is more ideal, but you can do 422 if you like. I do my talking head stuff on YouTube. I'm just using 422 because it doesn't really matter. It really depends how you're lighting and if you're lighting good enough. I just don't blow out highlights ever. That's how I don't deal with those in post. Oh man, Patrick Tommaso, he said that his stream isn't working now. You guys all are working, right? It's working for everyone else? Yeah, blown out highlights. I'm since the beginning of time, I've hated blown out highlights, and so I try so hard not to do it. Right now, I'm obviously doing it, but that's just because I have to. But No, I do everything in my power to not have blown out highlights because you cannot get those back in post. If you underexpose your shadows a little bit, you can lift those back up and denoise them or whatever. Still not recommended, but you can't get back highlights that are gone. You just can't. In a digital sensor, you can't get them back. Shooting on film, it's a totally different thing. Four by four bigger frames that is foldable. Yeah, I would still say this grid. Oh, frames. See, that's why I use a Home Depot bar to put up my 6x6 because the standard film, like the film standard for like the frames, the butterfly frames, they don't collapse very well, and they don't really fit in vehicles and stuff like that. You kind of have to make your own. So I don't know why someone hasn't made that yet. I just haven't found one. If someone has made it. I have not tried a Portuguese beer, Superbock, no. John Dewberry entering the feed. John Dewberry doesn't mind blowing out some highlights. Let's all rag on him. He's a good DP friend of mine. Canon C500 Mark II and the Sony FX9. I can maybe do a review over those if someone in town will get one for me to play with. Like I said, I don't love Sony cameras. That is the first Sony camera though that the image coming out of it that I can tell from watching online, the S-Log or the log image looks better than other ones that I've seen. So that one looks pretty nice. A little cheap though. Sony cameras, the EVF and stuff, it's just kind of cheap. The Canon would be a lot nicer to own. But I would probably still get the Mavo because it looks real nice. The Mavo has a metal body. You can put SSDs in the side of it. There's no proprietary issues. You can put any lens on it. You can put PL or EF. I just like that camera a lot. Is a quarter black chromis overkill? No, I actually use the quarter black chromis on everything. Although my friend John, who I was just calling out about blowing out windows, he has a 1/8 Pro Mist, and his sometimes looks more aggressive than my quarter. So I don't really understand that. They're just kind of mapping the halation a little differently. I would maybe get both and try them out, but I use the quarter on everything, and I don't think it's too much. What are we on here? How long have we been streaming this? At some point, my camera's going to die. I did not have an external power source for it, so we're at an hour. And I have a Chinese battery in it, so I have no idea when it's going to die. So if it dies while we're talking, I apologize, and we're just going to have to call that the end of the stream. But it'll probably still go for a little bit longer. Stock footage. Filming stock footage or using stock footage? Oh, I'm using a Canon EOS R for the stream using USB-C computer. Now, I thought you had to use a bunch of software to make it load up, but when I turned it back on, when I updated OBS, it just started working. So, yeah, I already kind of talked about the red Komodo. Sorry. It seems interesting, but it's not full frame, and it's still gonna be pretty pricey, so I'm not super interested in it. It's just too competitive right now. Fogy Bear, go-to coffee drink. Always a pour over or always a cortado. A cortado is the perfect coffee drink, in my opinion, if you want a little milk, but if not, then a pour over for sure. What we do at our shop is called a coffee shot, and so we basically brew a cup of coffee through an espresso machine in 60 seconds, and that's kind of been my new fun thing that I do at our shop. It's Canon EOS R is what I'm streaming on. So what's everyone watching right now during the quarantine? I started The Outsider. I watched about 4 episodes of that. I watched some Westworld, which the first episode was really intriguing. The last season I did not love very much, but second episode really did not like the second episode. It was just all over the place. It was like elementary writing. It was just exposition. But the first episode was intriguing. Full frame or Super 35? The age-old question. I like full frame, but I've been shooting full frame a little bit, and you know what? It is hard to get things in focus. I should probably make a video comparing the two. There is something to be said about having the extra depth on a Super 35, but still being able to open your lens all the way up. That's really what it comes down to. If you can open your lens all the way up, get really pretty bokeh, but still have your subject in focus, that's where the Super 35 is kind of the way to go. But right now, it's just like, you're just trying to get a unique image and make things look epic and grand, and you want a full frame sensor. You just have to be able to pull focus on it. Tiger King. Yeah, anyone watching Tiger King? That takes place right here in my home state. That guy lives around here. You're just watching tutorials. Yeah. A minute straight of me making fun of Patrick Tommaso. You know, Patrick and I are very similar people, and if I'm making fun of him, in turn I'm making fun of myself. So I don't know if I can make fun of him. The only thing I could say is, like, dude's on Twitter all day, and I don't know how he keeps up with that. It's impressive. I could make fun of the fact that he still shoots on a GH5 without a speed booster and shoots on a micro four thirds sensor cropped all the time. And I just don't get it. I can't do that. But props to him for just owning it. Yeah, staying motivated and focused, you just always got to be watching stuff and not always getting lost. Yeah, getting lost in the technical details. I mean, they're just tools to help get your image. That's what I was talking about earlier. Like, if it looks good on your monitor, it looks good. Stop worrying about all the stuff. People were asking me on my LED lighting video. They were like, what about the fact that LED lights like reflect differently off of skin and the colors? It's like, yeah, for sure. But like, did it look good? Does the viewer still think it looks good? Then don't stress it so much. Top 5 movies or TV series with excellent cinematography or storytelling. I don't do top 5 movies. I can't do that. My brain doesn't work that way. But, like I said earlier, Social Network for sure. The Prestige is my favorite movie, I would say. Watch any Christopher Nolan movie or any David Fincher film and you're good to go. But right now, Denis, I don't know how to say his last name, the director of Arrival, Blade Runner, he's becoming my new favorite, watching any of his movies. For sure. Any Roger Deakins film is probably going to be lit really well, looks amazing. Actually a movie that he shot that got terrible reviews recently that I thought was actually a pretty decent movie, and I thought it looked amazing, and that was the Goldfinch. Maybe go watch that one. That movie looks really, really nice. It has like a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes though, so. Breaking Bad, that's a good rewatch. Shooting on film, wide angle lenses, super interesting composition. I haven't used the aperture spotlight that much more. I like it a lot. There's not a reason to use it all the time. So I keep it, in my car basically, ready for anything, but I haven't used it a lot. 2049, I have rewatched that one quite a few times. That one, the lighting in 2049 is so good. 2049, like the skin tones and how the shadows fall off in that movie. I have not seen Midsommar yet. Yeah, Denis plus Deakins for sure. But also Bradford Young. I think Arrival is one of the best movies. I watched Arrival 3 times in theaters. That movie is gorgeous. The movie is just an amazing movie. So Bradford Young, I like Bradford Young a lot. Although Solo was a little flat for me. I wish there was more contrast in Solo. Full frame look was nice though. I tried to watch The Wire when they put it back on HBO, but the 4:3 pan and scan 16:9 situation gave me anxiety and I turned it off. ND filter. I have a cheap $20 ND filter. I've talked about it on the channel a bunch, and I'm using it right now. I don't know. It's not bad at all. It cuts infrared light on most cameras, which is nice, and it's $20. I would maybe just start with that, and if you find that there's maybe a hair of a green cast on it, if that's bothering you, then... Oh, John Dewberry, yes, Sicario. Sicario is an amazing movie. I watched that movie probably 10 times. Yeah, Steve Yedlin. I have seen all of those demonstrations on film versus digital. Uh-oh, it's noon. That means our tornado sirens are going off. If you guys don't know anything about Oklahoma, where I'm from, we have tornado season, and we get hundreds of tornadoes basically in April and May, and so we have to have this siren check every Saturday. Yeah, Steve Yedlin, though. I did see Knives Out, and I thought that was a really well shot movie, but from like a color standpoint and from his contrast ratios, it actually was my least favorite of his, which I thought was interesting. Movie was fun though. I was thinking about trying to recreate some stuff from that. I really like that look that they did where they actually lit through, they put the shapes of the room on their lighting so the reflections in glasses would look right. I don't know if any of you have tried to shoot with someone wearing glasses, but it is a nightmare. Cinematography of Marriage Story was pretty nice. That was shot on film, I believe, right? Kind of that old school handheld look. Shane Hurlbutt. What do I think of him? I don't know. I think it's really nice that he put out a lot of tutorials when YouTube first started, and I thought that was really cool because no one was really doing that. But I haven't really watched any of his movies. None of his movies really inspired me cinematography wise. But he's been in the industry a long time. He has a lot of knowledge. So, favorite style of lighting. Soft lighting, lots of mostly dark stuff. That's what I like. On the Ursa, yeah, you definitely need, so I've used an IR cut filter on it, and I have like an expensive one, like $150 one, and it doesn't cut all the the infrared, which is weird. But that $20 ND filter that I have does cut all of it, which is super strange. So every sensor is different. You kind of have to experiment. But something you should definitely look at, because the Pocket has a little bit of infrared pollution, and the 6K probably does too. So you guys should definitely look into that when you're buying those cameras. You may not notice it at first, but I would test it after you get those cameras. Clean shadows on the Pocket 4K isn't that hard. The Pocket 4K does pretty decent in low light. You're biracial, right? White and Asian Japanese. Yes, I'm an 8th Japanese. The filter I have is the Zomi. It's like, here, let's see if this will focus. Can you see it? Yeah, I think they're like $21 on Amazon or something. And it comes with the case and everything. I would show you the filter, but it's on the camera. I have a link in all my YouTube descriptions, so you can just find it there. Steve Yedlin gets too caught up in the technical specs. No, I think what he's trying to do is saying that people should stop stressing digital versus film and the technicalities there. And he's saying you can still recreate it. So yes, he has done some crazy math to make it happen. And so he's definitely gone really deep on that. So maybe he gets caught up in too much because you probably could just shoot on film. But he's basically saying, stop worrying about it. Let's shoot on this camera. It'll look good. So, favorite short film on YouTube? No, I don't think I do. How does this sound? I've never done a live stream with this setup before. Does it look decent? Sound decent? I have no idea what it looks like on your end. You guys should let me know before we sign off because I want to do this again in the future. I want to make sure this setup works. Yeah, the thing about Yedlin is he has not released his math, and so no one else can like recreate the film look on digital like he has, unless someone else can decode the math. Plus, I don't even know how you add math to your programs, but he basically makes it sound like it's like whatever. Every program you can just change the parameters. Yes, I'm gonna re-upload this stream afterwards on my channel, so you guys can watch this later for sure. Oh yeah, you guys do have a black frame around, don't you? Yeah, that's OBS. When I changed it to 1080p, it reframed everything real funny. I'm sure I can fix that for the next stream. Okay, let's see. Make the bitrate higher in OBS. The bitrate is really high, like something like 10,000 or something like that. Definitely look at that though. Yeah. I think that's the full frame image you're seeing. I think it's just in a smaller, I think the resolution of the entire thing is just wider than 1080. So it's, I think that frame is right. Favorite beer. Okay, so the problem with favorite beers is that I mostly just drink local beer here. We have like a really good craft beer scene here in Oklahoma. But if you are in any shopping center in the nation, if you can get Sierra Nevada Hazy Little Thing, that is my favorite beer that you can basically buy everywhere. I have some in my fridge right now. But I really like that style of beer. Hazy IPAs, fruity, that's what I like. I will try to do these streams more often. I need to get like a studio or something because setting all this up every time is getting kind of out of hand. I would love to stream a lot more often. So if I can come up with a way of doing that, then I will do this way more for sure. It seems like a good thing to be doing right now during the quarantine, you know? We're gonna be home a lot. Can just hop on and talk. I have a lot to learn about the streaming though, because you're right, I can probably make this higher resolution. I can probably fit the screen better. I could probably limit the compression somehow. Can you hear the fan on my computer? Because it is just at full blast right now. Or actually, maybe that's the fan from the aperture. Any plans for a full-length film? My friends Lamar plus Nick, who I've done quite a few little short film projects with, they've been writing a few feature films. I'm hoping to shoot one of those, I hope maybe next year or something, depending on how the economy gets back up on its feet. I'm also planning a feature-length documentary right now that I'm going to make with my friend. That's something I'm really excited about, and it's something I'll make a lot of content for YouTube about, kind of come along on the process of that. That'll probably take a year to make, so that'll be kind of fun too. Yeah, we'll have to talk more about OBS at some time so I can get this streaming better. What else? Is anyone trying to shoot while they're stuck at home? I'm going to try to make some videos this week based, in one of the videos I'm going to be using the XT3 and I want to shoot some shots, but I'm definitely going to just do it right here in my loft and then maybe right outside here because going outside isn't much of an option. So I'm going to try to shoot some pretty stuff and try to stay inspired. How do you monetize something like a documentary? Well, I mean, it's the trickiest thing ever. I'm going to try to make as much of it as I can on my own and then see if someone wants to buy it. And if not, we'll just release it ourselves. Probably do a Kickstarter at some point, depending if we need more money or not. No, I don't have any videos about exporting settings for YouTube. It took me so many videos to even figure out good exporting settings for YouTube because I light so dark and compression just breaks. Oh yeah, isn't Film Riot doing like a 1-minute challenge? I haven't looked into that very much. Could be fun. Yeah, do a video. I've done a lot, I haven't made a specific video about not using lights, but using practicals and like window light, but I've incorporated it a lot in a lot of my other videos. So if you just kind of watch how I apply light in those other videos. Who has your favorite handheld? Good question. Hoyt? Because he just puts the biggest camera he can on his shoulder and he's just a big dude. Good handheld. I have not used the Forza 60 by Nanlite. I'm guessing that's just like what? Like a Leica? It's basically a 120D. It looks really nice though. It's carbon fiber. Those Nanlite tubes though, people should get more of those. LED tubes are really awesome. Do you guys want to see a video on the Fuji? Interested in seeing some stuff over that? Sorry, I don't have any thoughts on Sony cameras. I don't really use them. They annoyed me too much when they first came out, and I just stopped using them altogether. All right, well, I think we're trailing off here a little bit. I think I'm going to wrap this stream up. I'm going to try to do more in the future for sure. And I'm going to try to get my settings a little bit better. I'm gonna re-upload this to the channel in the next couple of days, and so you guys can watch this later if you tuned in a little late and you want to watch the beginning of it. And then definitely like hit me up on Instagram and Twitter and in the comments and stuff, and tell me what you want to see on the next stream, so we can have some something to talk about. Usually I would say like until next time, guys, and cheers you with my beer, but I don't have that ability, and I just finished my LaCroix, which that kind of sucks. All right, stay safe, guys, during quarantine. Keep shooting, even though you can't go outside. Get inspired by something. Don't just sit around and do nothing. I mean, come on. You should definitely be looking at some stuff still. Shooting some stuff as well. All right, I'm going to sign off. We'll see you guys.